right, so let's continue our discussion of the ongoing situation in Israel, which has launched an offensive against Hamas in the Gaza Strip, bombing some 50 targets, including homes, in a campaign meant to end all the Palestinian rocket fire into the Jewish state. It's called Operation Protective Edge. It's reached deeper into Israel and intensified amid tensions over the killing of those 3 Israeli teens and the apparent revenge killing of a Palestinian teenager. I'm joined now by Noah Shack. He's with the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs. Good to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Let's talk about this because I think, this is a big international headline, but it's got a lot of ramifications around the world. The Israeli military now mobilizing possible ground troops for the possibility of a ground invasion. What happens then?
So just to take this back a step, there have been a significant increase in rocket attacks into Israel over the last number of weeks.
It doesn't really get reported.
Over 300 rockets and mortars have been fired into Israel over the last number of weeks, more than 80 yesterday alone.
Sure.
This is something that's had over 1 million Israelis under direct threat, with municipalities in the south declaring states of emergency and the government encouraging everyone living there to stay within close proximity of bomb shelters. A lot of them have 15 seconds to get to safety once the alarm goes. And I just can't even imagine what that's like, to have 15 seconds to get your children to safety before the bombs start falling. I mean,
Israel is used to being under attack, so they've got this pretty much down to a well-oiled machine, but nonetheless, it doesn't get reported often that the situation is that Israel is always under direct threat. They face a lot of this all the time, but in the last couple of weeks, of course, it's become increasingly worse.
That's right. There's been a massive escalation on the part of Hamas in terms of its attacks into Israel. And so the Israeli government, as you mentioned, has launched Protective Edge. They launched it last night, started by launching naval and aerial attacks on specific targets in the Gaza Strip, precision attacks on weapons depots, missile launching sites, terrorist operatives, and the like, and indicating that this will be a staged operation that will continue as long as it's necessary.
And how long do you think that's going to take? Do you get the sense that we're heading into a third intifada?
I don't think so, but of course you never know what tomorrow's developments will bring. I think that the Israeli government has been fairly measured in its response to this situation. They have authorized the drafting of reservists. There's the potential for ground forces to be mobilized in the future as this thing continues. But really what this operation is about is bringing us back to the situation that prevailed after the last operation in 2012, Operation Pillar of Defense. In the entire year following that operation, only 36 rockets were landed on Israel. If this operation is successful, we'll have the same result. And that's what Israel is seeking to achieve. They're looking to diminish the capacity of terrorist organizations like Hamas to launch attacks against Israel, and they're looking to push them towards a ceasefire and a situation where they will not be launching the attacks at the scale that we're seeing right now, which is just intolerable.
Do you recall a time when tensions seemed to be so high?
Well, I think in 2012 on the Gaza front, we had a very similar situation. The Israeli government did mobilize reservists, they did mobilize ground troops, and ultimately Hamas made a fortunate decision and ended the hostilities by stopping the rocket fire before those ground forces were necessary. And I think all reasonable people hope that Hamas will come to a similar conclusion sooner rather than later and stop the rocket fire into Israel and stop its escalation.
Yeah, but I'm not sure that's going to happen. They seem to poke the bear, poke the bear. I mean, look, the White House isn't going to do anything. I'm not sure what their reaction. I'm not sure if you saw the op-ed piece in the Israeli newspaper today. Mr. Obama calling Abbas a partner in peace, while completely ignoring Mr. Netanyahu of his role, warning of a dangerous moment for the region after the collapse of this U.S.-backed peace deal, which is completely, I don't think a lot of people had hoped that was going to go anywhere, but it's completely off the table at this point.
Well, if you want to talk about a dangerous moment for the region, I would look at this in broader regional terms. Hamas can't be looked at in isolation. They are not dissimilar from groups like ISIS, Al-Qaeda, even Iran to a certain extent, in terms of their goals. What they want is the destruction of liberal democracy and its replacement with a theocratic Islamist regime. And that's really what we're seeing right now is a broad trend of extremist violence in the region that should be causing everyone a great deal of concern.
And I think maybe that's where you say, have we ever seen this kind of tension before? Israel always sees tension. It's always under attack by those who would like to eradicate it off the map. But we are seeing something different here with the advancement and the fast advancement of groups like ISIS, the Muslim Brotherhood group organization saying we want to start a holy war, on Israel, calling for it. We haven't heard this kind of language or rhetoric, I don't think, before.
No, this is a new and certainly dynamic and fluid situation. And just mentioning the Muslim Brotherhood, if you look at who is primarily fomenting the violence, it's not the moderate Arab leadership among Palestinians and Arab Israelis. It's Hamas in Gaza and the Islamic movement within Israel, both of whom are Muslim Brotherhood offshoots that are really inciting this type of response, be it riots in Arab communities in Israel or rocket fire and terrorist attacks emanating out of Gaza.
And so if Mr. Obama really talks about this partner in peace, clearly it would take Abbas then saying to Hamas, we are no longer in partnership, which is, I don't think, going to happen.
Hamas has said that has called on Fatah, Mr. Abbas's faction, to join in the attacks on Israel, saying that unity requires sacrifice. I think that given the kidnapping of 3 Israeli teenagers in which Hamas operatives were directly implicated, given these continually escalating attacks against Israeli civilians, I think Mr. Abbas is hard-pressed to justify how this unity agreement makes any sense.
Right, and so ground troops are ready. Do you get the sense that they'll go in?
I think it's entirely up to Hamas. If Israel wants quiet, they want to return to a situation where their population, where Israeli civilians in the south of the country, and even further north, by the way, Hamas has the capacity to reach Tel Aviv. We haven't seen it yet, but it's entirely possible that they will escalate further and start launching rockets at Tel Aviv.
Do you not get the sense that this might, they may feel that this is the time to do it now, with ISIS feeling emboldened? They're seeing the advancement that they are making in the region of Iraq. Don't you get the sense that they may feel that this is the time? The White House isn't going to step in. Maybe it's time to do this now because no one's going to stop us.
Well, Israel can stop them.
Well, I know Israel can.
And I think they recognize that. They recognize what Israel is capable of doing, and they're after a victory. I mean, don't forget this kidnapping has resulted in all of those prisoners, or a significant chunk of those prisoners who were released in the Gilad Shalit deal, being rearrested and sent back to jail. Fortunately, they were not able to exact a price in terms of the release of additional terrorists from Israel in exchange for those boys. It's a tragedy. It's a horrible situation, the death of those Israeli teenagers that people around the world continue to mourn. And Hamas itself, I think, must be feeling a bit of a strategic pinch, and hopefully they'll cut their losses before too long. Yeah, well, we'll certainly have to wait and see and watch. I do appreciate your insight. Thank you very much. Thanks, Noel.